All right. Hey, episode 5, guys.
Episode 5.
Who thought we'd get this far?
Woo.
I didn't. No, I did.
Dang.
It's just I know.
I didn't think we'd make it this far.
It's hard to imagine getting to episode 5 when you haven't even recorded episode 1, right? I mean,
well, that means we've spent 5 hours together as well. So
that's true too.
That's another thing.
More than 5, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone hears the edited episode that's an hour, but we've been talking for more than 5 hours.
The fact that you guys have put up with me for over 5 hours, y'all should get a medal.
I've got you on mute though, yeah?
Neil. Neil's mic has been muted. Bye, Neil.
Taking a sip of coffee.
Oh, shoot. Anyway, so what's new with you guys?
Well, the sun has finally come out in England after the all of rain for the past forever. So that's pretty impressive. We're coming out of what was called winter, but genuinely, it's been like 11, 12 degrees every day for the whole of winter, which is like the weirdest thing. So 11, 12 degrees, that's for you Americans. I'm sorry, that's like, what would that be? 60 like something?
50s, right?
Yeah, something around there. It's been
unseasonably warm. It's been warm for us too. We've had we've had a couple of bouts of cold weather, but I woke up today. This is the nearly the end of March when we're recording this, and there's a good 2 inches of snow on the ground that wasn't forecasted.
Wow.
So that's fun because it was like 50 degrees a week ago, and it's going to be 50 degrees in a couple days. So welcome to Smarch.
It's been unseasonably cool here. Like, it's really cold outside. It's like 70s.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Sounds awful. I can't imagine.
Jeez.
Down here in freezing Florida, right?
How small is that violin, Neil? Neil, did you say that? Nate had like the world's smallest violin he was playing there.
It's tiny. It's tiny. I'm so... Oh, my gosh.
So I'm on spring break now. Woohoo!
Nice. Oh, nice. You got the week off.
Yeah. So I don't have to go to work for a week. Woohoo!
Nice. Right on. Are you
going
to record new music?
I'm going to get myself ready by putting some comfortable headphones on. You two chat for a second. I'll be right back. Probably in time for the intro.
All right.
Oh, okay. Get some comfortable headphones on.
Well, I think he was wearing in-ears. I tried to wear my in-ears yesterday, and I was like, no, not for a long conversation. They started to hurt after about 20 minutes. I'm like, I'm just going to put on the big earmuffs.
Yeah, these are more comfortable than an in-ear. That's for sure.
That is better. Sorry about that.
I do use in-ears for live shows, but...
Yeah, I need to get my in-ears molded to my ears. I
need to do that too.
I have some molded earplugs, which were the best $200 I ever spent.
Yeah.
They're fantastic. And I picked up a pair of Shure in-ears, and I need to get those molded as opposed to using the factory rubber tips. But I'm looking forward to
I've got
those impressions
in my gig
in a
bag.
couple weeks.
Yeah, I've got those in my gig bag, all molded to my ears. They're not the ones I picked up this morning to do this podcast with. They were the old ones, just with the bog standard inserts. So, of course, why wouldn't you use the £200 molded to your ear ones? Yeah, well done, Ben. Good skills.
No, of course not.
Should we get on with it? Should we get going?
Well, Ben,
what do we reckon?
Well, I wanted to say one more thing. Just, it's our podcast, so we can, we can show off our shit. Ben has a new song out. It just came out, but by the time everyone hears this, it'll have been out for a few months now. But yeah, Ben, Walls of Love is your new song. Written by Ben Holmes, produced by me, mixed by me.
Indeed. Made good by you. That's the...
Thank you. And some other instrumentation from our friend down under, Adam Rogers, on the lead vocals, and Simon Karlstadt on guitar. He's in Sweden.
Yeah, Stockholm.
Sweden.
Yeah, okay. What a guitarist he is.
Yes, he is.
Sure I got that. Right on. We'll post a link. Since it's our show, we can do that. We'll post a link in the show notes for that song. Go and listen to it. Dare I say, smash that subscribe button on your favorite streaming platform for Ben Holmes music. So
yeah, and I can earn another £1.75.
Yeah. Ben can buy a cup of tea next time he goes out.
Yeah. Amazing.
All right. Yay for streaming royalties. We're going to talk about that today.
Yes,
because we have someone very special that knows all about this. So Neil, why don't you tell us who we're talking to today?
Hi, and welcome to Sound Discussion. Each episode, we discuss a music topic which we have all had first-hand experience with. These will be anything from getting started, recording, playing live, mixing, mastering, and everything in between. Most episodes, we will have a special guest to bring their professional experience to the discussion. So, let's get started.
Today, we are happy to have with us an extremely talented musician and songwriter, Leanne Binder. She comes to us by the way of Lee Turner from episode 3. She is a native of the Youngstown, Ohio area and has established herself a premier vocal coach to clientele in the Northeast, Ohio, Nashville, Tennessee, and beyond. She's toured the United States and UK promoting her music. She also releases her music on her own record label. And she consults with artists on building their profiles, promoting self-advocacy, and guidance in the ever-confusing world of the music business. There's a lot to unpack in today's discussion, as we will be talking with Leanne about digital music distribution platforms such as DistroKid, CD Baby, and others. Music licensing through BMI or ASCAP, ASCAP, I think, what they are and if they're important for your music, as well as stories and anecdotes from a seasoned professional who learned how to figure this all out for herself through the School of Hard Knocks, literally. One disclaimer before we begin, though. Nothing discussed here can be constituted as legal advice, and if you find that you have questions about the legality of releasing your music, licensing, etc., then you should consult with a qualified and licensed entertainment attorney. Welcome to the show, Leanne. We are so happy to have you with us on this month's episode of Sound Discussion.
Hey, guys. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm glad we could all manage to find the same time, being everybody all over the world.
Yeah. Well, it gets tricky.
Even if we don't all think the same time is the same time.
I was in Nashville all week this week working, so I'm still an hour weird off. And then forget it if it's Chicago. Like, there's 3 or 4 time changes, and then depending on if somebody decides to swing the clocks forward or back over here. So it's a blessing to all show up. We're here. We did it.
Yeah, we made it. It's all good.
Yeah.
How was that intro? Is there anything that we need to talk about real quick that we got wrong or expand upon?
I think it's great. Like I said, the biggest thing with me is I did all do this all by myself, and the hardest thing is the digital business world changes so quickly sometimes that I don't stay up on this for a living like an entertainment lawyer would, or somebody that specializes. Right. So I would just always tell people to make sure, do your due diligence, get on the websites. Things can change in a matter of a day or two that I would never even know about. So I'm always happy to help facilitate people to do what they want to do in the business and show them what I did. There's things that are standard with setting up. This has to come before this and that kind of stuff. But for even as far as money and streaming, like how much you get for streaming, which is like nothing really, that can change, all the time. So always do your own due diligence. Be an advocate for yourself and your music.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have a question to kind of kick this all off. But before I say that question, I need to grab my pen and paper. I left it behind me. So give me 30 seconds and then we'll keep going.
He really was going to get a pen and paper. I thought it was some. I thought it was some new Nate joke where we were going to have a great intro that then kicks in. No, he really was getting a pen and paper.
Yeah. Okay.
Amazing.
Yeah. No, I really was. I have a little like writing area back here in that chair, and I was sitting down here last night at midnight writing some notes out and the intro and all that stuff, and I forgot that I had left my pencil and pad back there, and so I'm like, where's my note-taking facility?
Buy those pretty guitars.
All right. Yeah, I don't play them, so I might as well sit next to them. So, Leanne, thank you again for being here. And so the first question I wanted to jump into was, everyone knows what the streaming services are these days, right? Mm-hmm. It's pretty much the lifeblood of how people consume music. We're not going to get into physical media and all that stuff. But, everyone knows what Spotify is, YouTube Music, Apple Music, etc.
Right.
How does an artist go from a song that they have recorded and then, want to release it? And it seems like a very simple question and doesn't really have a very simple answer. I know when I started out, I didn't exactly know where to turn. Right. So I asked a bunch of people, what do you guys do? So I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there that still are unsure how they even go about getting their music onto the streaming platforms instead of self-releasing something on, say, SoundCloud. So how does someone begin this process?
The very first thing you have got to do, even if you're going to release on SoundCloud, okay, like if you want to put something out into the ether, you've got to look at these licensing companies. Now there's 3 of them: BMI, ASCAP, and CSAC. Take CSAC out of it because it's pretty much a by invitation only licensing company. They work with a lot of big film and TV, and that's kind of its niche. That's like a great goal. It's a great place to live. But most of us are in BMI or ASCAP. And it's regional. You can look up online, and like I go to BMI Nashville because I work in Nashville all the time. But I was, because I live in the north, affiliated with, my region. I used to call the Chicago offices. So where you're closest to is usually where you make a phone call to. But all of them are connected. They're not different entities. So if it's BMI across the nation. They just have hubs in major cities: New York, LA, Chicago. I think there's one in Atlanta now, but don't hold me to that. Nashville. So I belong to BMI. I have a lot of friends that belong to ASCAP. You have to belong to one or the other. You pick one. They're very much the same kind of entities. BMI used to work a lot more with songwriters and singers. I just liked it better. And everybody in my band, when I was young, I joined BMI when I was 17 or 18 years old. The guys in my band who were all older than me, that's where they belonged. So that's where I joined. It was pretty much what I did. So there's no, this one's better than that one. It just pick one, but you can only pick one. Now, that doesn't mean that if you get in and you're like, I really don't want to be here, I don't like this, or you have a bad, experience, you can move to the other one. Like you aren't there for the rest of your life. You can, but you can't belong to both at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So does someone, what comes first? Signing up for, say, DistroKid, or contacting BMI and signing up there?
You need to get with your music licensing house first. You have to get to BMI or ASCAP first, because you will get like your own private code, your number. Like you'll have a BMI number that you will need when you go to these DistroKid, CD Baby, that you will need to plug in as a publisher and as a songwriter, so that attaches your royalties. That's a way of finding, you're published with BMI. So now as you go to, CD Baby or DistroKid or TuneCore, you have those numbers established in the big wheel, it's part of your promotion and going through. Does everybody understand? You get that? Like,
yeah.
It's the very first thing you need to do, because they're the ones that blanket, everything.
So now I have a question.
Sure.
BMI, is there a requirement to be like, do you have to have so many songs, or is it just you have one song and you can, or you don't have any songs and you can be a member of BMI?
Okay, that's a really good question. You can join BMI. You might need one song because you have to register something, but I don't think you can join and then get a song and register it. But BMI is not going to work for you. It's not. BMI is part of your process to releasing music. So if you're not releasing music, it's kind of a moot point to belong to BMI or ASCAP. But you can join. It is free. I know BMI is free to join as a songwriter. Then you can also join as your own independent publisher, which that's what I am, because I want all the money. You want to control as much of your ownership, especially if you're a songwriter. So since we'll use Lee, since he's been on the show, Lee and I are writing partners on songs. So we split. So he gets a portion, I get a portion of the songwriting. Now we are both, I helped him get into the publishing, joining up and becoming a publisher with BMI. I believe now, and like I said, don't quote me, look online. I paid $150 for a lifetime membership, which for me, I'm like, that's fine. I mean, heck, I spent more than that.
Yeah, it's not a lot of money.
No, it's really not. I can do that in whiskey, so, right? So, we joined, we made our publishing companies, and then you decide on the splits of what is fair for every song is different. Like, this is a 50-50 or this is a 70-30. And you work that out with the people that you're writing with. I think it's really important, on a side note, as a songwriter, when you get in the room with people, make sure that it's a very uncomfortable conversation. But make sure you set the parameters by which you want to split songs, or what you think those worths are. It'll save you an immense amount of headache and argument or weird conversations about, well, I brought the bridge in, so how much publishing does that mean I get? Like, kind of,
right.
You kind of have to make that, sit down and everybody look at the pie and decide what is a fair, equitable, trade. Because when you're young, or when you don't have any hits, it's like, I don't care. But if
you just want to get your music out there,
and you strike gold though, and there's some real money coming in, then people start, well, what do you mean? But I wrote, if it wasn't for me. So kind of, if you can establish that
conversation,
have the tough conversation early, it's much easier.
So the adage of write a word, get a third is...
Yeah, you'll find yourself writing with people that you trust and all. Usually people who do this are very fair about it. And the ones that aren't, I'm not working with them. It's too much of a hassle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That goes for anything in music, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Don't work with the people who are hard to work with.
Yeah. This is, at the end of the day, for me, I know it's a business, but if it's not giving me joy, and I don't walk out feeling better than when I walked in, then I have spent a day not doing what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. 100%.
That's good to keep in mind. Yeah.
So get your publishing and get your publishing set up first.
BMI, is that the same license that for live music? Is that the same company that does licensing for venues to allow live musicians to do cover songs? Is that the same thing, or am I?
No, you're one of the.
Okay.
The BMI and all of them, they all do that. They hit the clubs and they want licensing fees. I've noticed that the more streaming services have taken over the industry, the more licensing companies have had to look at getting a way of an income stream. It seems like the lockdown has become harder and harder. Because they feel that you're playing songs that they own, that they represent the publishing to. And it's not just BMI that does it. It's ASCAP. It's all of them. And those artists should be compensated for them making money listening to their songs that performed.
So if you are
you're going to get me in trouble.
That is, so no, but like what I'm saying is like if you're a venue and you're trying to get licensing is if you're a venue and you're getting licensing, do you have to get one from BMI and ASCAP because like different artists belong to different ones, or is it just like if you got one or the other, or does that matter? Or I'm just curious.
No idea. I only know this because I'm in the I play originals, but I play covers too, and I've been a musician my whole life, and it is my understanding from club owners yelling at me, "What is this crap?" That everybody comes after them. Everybody wants a part of that pie. So you're like, knock, knock, knock.
Right.
ASCAP here. Knock, knock, knock. BMI here. Knock, knock, knock. And this is a little patio bar that seats, 50 people.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would not have thought that the, back patio club would even have any of this to worry about.
Restaurants,
it's my understanding
bars.
that even if you have TVs on your patio, that there is mechanical licensing. It just, the beast just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Yes. And it's not, people need to understand it's not the musicians that are doing this. It's not us that are playing that are doing this. This is a corporate issue way above my pay grade. But I've suffered the same thing, my friend. Yes, for years. And I've lost shows. I've lost venues because they can't afford the licensing fees. Some of them have been astronomical. They want $5,000 each one of the companies for little, quaint little wine places that you're just, it's a Sunday afternoon, nice little gig. So it's not just and it's rated on how many people are in the venue, and it'll prorate what the fee is. From what I understand, I've never, this is just, like I said, venue owners yelling at me about it and me just kind of learning a little bit of that stuff. But yeah.
Wow. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Goodness.
Yeah. I've heard a little bit about this stuff just because some venues have told me about it. They're like, oh yeah, we just got our licensing and stuff like that for live music. So we'd like to now start doing live music. And I'm like, oh, okay. I never thought to ask like, what, from what agency, for what, what does all that entail? I'm just like, yeah, I'm just going to play some 90s covers for you,
Yeah. And in all fair, I believe that songwriters, because I'm a songwriter, you should get paid for creating art. But if you're going to do that to the clubs, then can we talk about getting paid through our streaming services too, which is abominable. It's,
Yeah.
I don't understand what you're saying. I mean, Taylor Swift seems to make a fortune.
Right?
Now, what's the difference between a PRO and an MRO? Like, what's the mechanical license versus the mechanical rights organizations versus like the performance or public, the PROs?
Yeah. Mechanical, let me get this straight. Mechanical rights are, say I have 2 cover songs that I've put out in the ether. I had to pay for mechanical rights. So you used to go to like Harry Fox Agency to do mechanical licensing, which means you're paying for the right to, back in the day, it was just record the song. Now there's sampling and all kinds of, it's just exploded because of all the different genres using really big hooks from guitar riffs or whatever. So you go in and you pay X amount of dollars, or you used for every album you were going to print that had that song on. It used to be something like 8 cents per song that you were going to print onto your CD or album. I don't know what the cost is now, because now I only release, if I do a cover song, I only release it streaming. Because DistroKid actually has a place in when you're launching your song that if it is a cover song, you can pay a yearly, I believe it's $1.99 per song a year. And they take care of the mechanical licensing on it. They pay the songwriters, they pay the publishers. You don't have to worry about that. You pay them. They have, everything is computerized now, so they know how to just get in and find who you're looking for, and that is handled. Thank you, District.
I've actually done that once. I covered a Joe Gilder song.
Oh, okay.
And I released it on Spotify. I took it down because like I didn't want to pay for the yearly thing. And also I was changing out what was on Spotify and streaming services anyways. But yeah, I remember going through that and they're like, oh, just type in the artist, and you typed in the artist's name and they're like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It makes it.
That's a really cool service.
I think that's why a lot of people are releasing covers. And I don't think that's wrong. I mean, I think if you can look at Tracy Chapman's, look at Fast Cars.
Right.
Please, somebody pick up one of my songs and do something like that with it. You're like, right?
Sure.
We'll all just retire.
Yeah, I could buy more than a Diet Coke with my streaming.
I've had I did a song a couple of years ago with a friend in Australia, and to date we've made $8 in total on that song.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a lot of downloads, man.
That's a lot. Yeah, $8, and we released the song in 2017. I mean, that's sad.
That's how you paid for all those guitars, my friend.
That's right.
That's how I paid for all these guitars.
All those Tallys and Gibsons up there.
Layaway.
1 cent a month.
So, and a PRO, performing rights organization, is it's like, that's BMI and ASCAP. Those are, they represent your copyrighted work. Okay. So that's, your PRO is for you. It's BMI, ASCAP. A mechanical license is what you need to get for yourself when you're covering somebody else's song, or if somebody's licensing a song, a sample, or those kind of things. That is my understanding.
Okay, I want I want to return back to samples in a little bit, but because that's kind of its own sidebar as it is. But I want to talk about the digital platforms like DistroKid or CD Baby. Ben, you use Lander, right?
I do.
Right. And you have your own reasons.
Yeah, equally, I've never signed up with BMI. I didn't know anything about this bit. I just signed up with Lander and clicked the distribute button, and my music appeared places. It was amazing. That's how advanced my knowledge of this was. So that's a mental note. Go back and review that.
As me as well. I never signed up for BMI.
You may be not getting some royalties that are due you because you don't have a PRO.
Maybe. Yeah.
It might be like 40 cents.
As against 10.
But
hey, 40 cents is 40 cents. Don't knock it. I mean, you find a quarter on the street and that changes your day.
I am a big believer. I pick pennies up off the ground. It's free money.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like, don't be an idiot. But
so if people like Ben and I have signed up for DistroKid or Lander or whatever, and we've put our and Neil, so we're all in the same boat here. We have released music, and we haven't signed up for BMI or ASCAP. And I'm sure a lot of people that are listening to this are in the same boat that we are. So you had indicated that you should go to BMI or ASCAP first and sign up there, and then go to a digital distribution platform and proceed forward. If somebody has done it like we have, what happens if you sign up for BMI or ASCAP? Now, at this point, do those things prorate, go back, or is it like that's the line in the sand and now you'll be earning money on those royalties going forward?
That's a very fair question, and I'll give you a very fair answer. I'm not sure.
That's okay. No,
to
that's
be very
great.
honest with you, because I've never had any.
That's okay.
Usually, like my students here, if I know they're getting into songwriting, I get them into a PRO first. I believe, and I would think that there would be it would go back so far, but there's only so far it will go back. But
yeah.
I don't know. What I would suggest is to just get in there. And you have to make a pretty bunch of streams to start seeing any kind of real residual from BMI or ASCAP. And like I said, I've been doing this forever. And I know there are things that I have done that have been lost in the ether through lawsuits and that kind of stuff. But I just started now getting my first steady BMI checks. I took pictures of them. I'm like, I can't believe I got a check from BMI.
That's awesome. Well, and so this is something really good for our listeners to take note of, is if you are not associated with a publishing outfit like BMI or ASCAP, go and do that, because you might not see a huge return on that right away, but again, who knows? It doesn't take much these days for a song to get picked up in some capacity and catch fire, right? And you want to be ready for when that might happen.
Yes, that's why I always do those extra things. There's another thing that is almost like people don't even talk about it much anymore, and that's actually getting copyrights through the Library of Congress.
Okay.
I can even look up here. The last I had checked, it was $35 a song to register with the Library of Congress. Now, if you are smart, everybody be smart, you can do collections of songs. So you can do, if you are the sole songwriter on a song or on 10 songs, you do like Leanne Binder's collection number 1, and you put all of those songs in at once, and then you still only pay, it's like 35 or 50. It's so much cheaper to do it that way.
Okay,
if you have different songwriters, say we do Leanne and Lee, all of our songs are going to be copywritten as Leanne and Lee's volume number 1. You can do that, but they have to be the same songwriters on the songs. They can't be different ones. Now, why would you want to pay for the Library of Congress when you pretty much, you've, with all the digital stuff that's in the world, everything is time stamped. It's really hard to prove fraud nowadays, but it wasn't back.
Don't they call that poor man's copyright?
No. Don't put it. That's when you put it in an envelope and mail it to yourself.
Oh, okay.
I don't believe that really ever worked, but
yeah,
I was going to ask about that.
But with the timestamps, I thought, well, maybe that's a newer digital new way of poor man's copyright, or if that's the right term. I don't know. Sorry.
Well, it's not even, because you have digital, like everybody's got digital timestamps on all of their stuff. So it's pretty hard for somebody to go, well, I wrote this and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, well, dude, here's my stems. Like, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
But my entertainment lawyer, when we were talking, she was working with me, getting me through an issue. And, she said, if you would have had this copywritten already through the Library of Congress and it goes to court, it was found in your favor that this was theft, or this was all of your legal fees would have been paid for.
Oh,
wow.
So because you've registered it already.
I didn't if I would have registered it with the Library of Congress already, I had a song stolen, believe it or not, a long time ago. And it was stolen by an entertainment lawyer, put onto a movie soundtrack as the featured song on it. And I got a call going, Leanne, do you know your song's on blah, blah, blah? And I looked it up. I'm like, you gotta be freaking kidding me.
Wow.
So I was right in the middle of working with some other people from Chicago, and a friend of mine, the executive producer on one of my albums, said, you need to call this woman. She's a very high profile entertainment lawyer. And I called her and I go, I can't even afford a conversation with you. Like, I know, like, I can't afford you. Mm-hmm. She's like, oh, this is way beyond. I'm in. Like, it just lit her rear end on fire. And we had.
Well, yeah, the whole story is beyond the pale, man. Yeah. Like an entertainment lawyer stealing your music. Like, what?
Yeah.
Dang.
You can't even make that shit up.
No. My life is Spinal Tap. I'm telling you. I should just quit writing music and write a book.
Wow.
And she said, that's what she asked me. She goes, well, is this copywritten? I go, he used even my scratch vocal. Like it wasn't even finished.
No.
Yeah.
I bet it sounded great though.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
But I could tell, I'm like, this is my scratch vocal on this thing. I'm like, I'm going to kill this guy. I remember pulling into like a random ice cream shop parking lot and just berating this human being. I'm like, I will kill you. And yeah, so I won. Unfortunately, it was not copywritten. It was not copywritten because everything had been stolen before I even had a chance to finish all my stuff. And so my legal fees kind of weighed off when I got out of the settlement. It was
you won.
It was worth it. Yeah.
But
it was worth it.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's what I'm saying. Like some of this due diligence stuff, you'd think never it'll happen, but it could happen.
Well, that's the thing, is no one ever really thinks something, and this goes beyond music, right? No one ever thinks something's going to happen, and then it just does. It happens out of the blue, unexpectedly. You don't see it coming. With copywriting in the Library of Congress, that is, utilizing a very official channel to have your music time-stamped, date-stamped, notarized, if you will, right?
Yes.
Now, what about social platforms like SoundCloud, where they have, I know plenty of people that upload ideas or rough tracks to SoundCloud, and I've never been one of those people because I'm always afraid that someone's going to steal that idea, right?
Yeah.
But if SoundCloud, it's time stamped, it's date stamped, it shows proof of ownership before somebody, is that a legit platform or a legit method to protect yourself if you're not going to go the route of full copyright?
Well, first of all, you can't full copyright something that's not fully done. Like,
okay,
I don't know that.
That's good to know.
I'm just critically thinking this. I don't know that there's a way to, I'm going to copyright these 8 bars. I don't know that that can happen, or like, this is what but I think my belief would be that SoundCloud has already gone down that rabbit hole. And if they are allowing that, there is timestamps to what you have created, which I would assume, and I'm not an entertainment lawyer, but I would assume that would hold up. Because digital, everything has made things so much different. It's so hard to do what has happened to me. I just happen to be doing it my whole life, and I'm old enough to have gone through some of that era where that stuff did happen.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's good to know, because I've been hesitant to put stuff on SoundCloud for that very reason. But it's good to know that just built into that platform is a degree of protection.
Yeah, there would have to be.
You are an owner.
Yeah, there would have to be. Yeah. I can't imagine that they didn't vet this through people that know way more about all of that licensing than I do. I would just think that would have to be in place, or they wouldn't have even offered it.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know.
As the next song gets stolen, I don't know.
Well, I'm sure it happens a lot more than people realize, especially when you're talking about, 8 bars, right? A riff.
8 notes.
I mean, what? 8? Let's talk about 8 notes, right? So let's talk about the fact of sampling music. So this ties into earlier, and sampling music. That's a huge part of music making these days, as you said. People sample stuff all the time, and there's recent instances where sampling has gotten people into trouble. I believe Kanye West ran into that recently.
Yeah, I think he did.
But we can go all the way back to Queen and David Bowie versus Vanilla Ice, and the famous riff that we all know about. And so listener, if you want, do a little bit of research there and go look up that case and what it talks about. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like, dung, 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 dung. And he's like, no, I went dung, 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 dung. I'm like, come on, dude. Yeah. And it was a fiasco. I remember when it happened, because I'm very Queen. Like, if we're going to, there's not even a thought of it for me. I'm like, that was not, but it set precedence. It did what it needed to do legally. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm Team Freddie as well.
Oh my God, I love Freddie Mercury. I love all of them.
Yeah, no, they're great, and it's so great to see Brian May still doing stuff these days.
I saw Queen now with Adam Lambert like 3 times.
Oh wow!
And I went, because it's kind of going off topic. I went in not going, okay, and I thought that it was a brilliant evening of Queen music. Adam's voice it's just there. It's one of a kind. And I think that Brian May and whoever was responsible for merging Queen with bringing in a new singer and not offending people who loved Freddie so much. I thought it was done brilliantly. I really do.
I've heard the same from other people, and I agree. I think that, and yeah, we are getting off topic, but I agree. I think that someone like Adam Lambert is probably the only person who could rightfully hold a torch up to
Freddie,
the persona that is Freddie Mercury.
Agreed.
And I think it was an absolutely appropriate choice and really well executed.
Yeah, I agree completely, 100%.
Can I ask you about your thoughts on the Ed Sheeran lawsuit about the guitar riff that, like, supposedly Marvin Gaye's camp thought that Ed Sheeran? Do you remember that lawsuit?
Oh, God, I do.
Yeah, it was like a couple months ago. It wasn't too long ago, right?
Yeah, and Ed Sheeran won that. Like, you can't copyright a chord progression, but it was clearly more than just a chord progression, because my goodness, like, if you lay the two tracks, you get them in the right key, you lay them over each other, it's basically Ed Sheeran copied that guitar riff.
Yeah,
but he won because it's like, how many times have like riffs like that, just chord progression riff styles and whatnot, have
just happens, right? I mean, every note, there's only 11 notes in the scale, right? 12 if you're counting the octave. Right. Those 11 notes can only make so many combinations of chords.
Yeah, that's
what is the chances that somebody's going to invent a new chord that can, it's all been written. Right?
But I thought he was going to lose that, because, like, not only was it the chord progression, but to me, it was the feel, it was the rhythm.
There was too much.
There's a lot more than just the chord progression.
Yeah, because you cannot copyright a chord progression, and I believe you cannot copyright a song title.
Okay.
Because if you think of, like, Sarah, like, like, there are just, if you look up songs, there are different songs named the same name. Mm-hmm. So I think that because it's just a title, now I don't know that people should go out and go, I'm going to write a song called Bohemian Rhapsody. I think you're going to run into a little bit of an issue.
You're going to run into a problem there, yeah.
But, some songs, some things, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think, like Feelings, or, something that's a very broad spectrum name, I think is very difficult to prove any kind of a copyright issue. Chords are the same thing. You cannot copyright chords, because E, A, and B, if you own them, then you own like 95% of every freaking blues band,
right.
I think it is, and that's where that Queen Vanilla Ice thing starts really moving into things. It is so many notes that are the same. Somebody correct me if I'm going wrong off of this. Like, I think you can only have, it can't be 8 notes, or something about 8 notes being the parameter by which, if you go more than that in a row, that somebody else has done, like that bass, dum dum boom 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 boom, then you've got to.
No.
I think that's where sampling started to come in, and people started paying for bits of. That's what you need to pay if you want to use. What was it? I can't think of some 90s rapper that used a Van Halen guitar riff. And that's when I think all of that sampling and sequencing started to become big. People were like, yeah, or somebody used like Billie Jean or Bad or something. Mm-hmm. You're like, great, you want to use that? And then you pay the sync license on it.
Right. Well, and as history has shown us, rules are put into place because something happened and forced a hand, right? So, like, all of this sync licensing and mechanical licensing is in place because somebody at one point got away with it and pissed the wrong person off, and now we have the rule, right? So yeah.
So it's a very, it's a slippery slope. I think I think some things are written by mistake, by happenstance. So when I write stuff, I'm like, I will call people and go, does this sound like anybody else? Like, do you immediately go, oh my God?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have tons of ideas that are, idea _ and then the band that it's kind of like, right? Because that helps me sort of like categorize the feeling or the vibe of the song. But also sometimes my idea is almost a direct ripoff of the band. And it's just me trying to make something kind of like that without copying.
Yes.
But
sometimes you get a little too close to the sun, right?
Yeah, I think.
But all music is inspired by music that has come before you.
Right.
Absolutely. That's another good point.
All art is inspired by art that has come before.
Absolutely. So you just
we wouldn't have Dave Grohl's drumming on Nevermind and Smells Like Teen Spirit had it not been for the disco bands that he listened to growing up. What's the the name is escaping me all of a sudden.
Yeah,
the band that he told the drummer he ripped off, and the drummer's like, yeah, I know.
Was it Parliament?
It's like
Parliament Funkadelic?
No. Hold on. I'm pulling out my phone because that's super professional. You guys keep going, and I'm going to look this up, and I'll come back.
But you're right. Like all music is derivative from other music. All has inspiration for music has come from other music.
Yeah.
You can't.
I think it's our job. I think it's our job to take what came before us and move it forward. Like that's part of what we're supposed to do as creators. That's and
absolutely.
But it gets very difficult because the internet and all of the Pro Tools or Logic and all of this stuff has made it so much easier to just automatically borrow, we'll call it borrow, from other people digitally, that it can get a little squirrely with folks. And I think there's a big difference to tipping your hat to something and then just blatantly taking somebody's work. So yeah.
Even in the Ed Sheeran lawsuit, something like he argued that the riff that they're even quoting was ripped off from previous artists, so like not ripped off, but like inspired by previous artists. It's that style of music. It's that.
Yeah, I mean, you can go down rabbit holes because I played in a lot of blues rock kind of stuff. Like, Zeppelin has been beaten about for a lot of these older, old blues tunes that they stepped into and, washed into Zeppelin. And did anybody ever get paid those royalties for, the Lemon Song or whatever? I think you just start drawing as musicians. I would like to believe that most of us are just extremely inspired by certain people, and you just love it so much that it ingrains itself into who you are as a musician, and then you regurgitate it. I don't know that there's a million people out there going, I'm going to go get the greatest guitar riff ever, and I'm going to tell people I made it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't think that's really happening.
No.
But musicians are inspired by the music they listen to, right? And that's, as Neil said, that's the natural progression of how songs. There's bands that wouldn't be around today had it not been for the Beatles or for The Who or whomever, right? So we are a product of those who came before us, and paying homage is how a lot of musicians go about creating their music, right? But direct, blatant ripping off is something that unfortunately also happens. And as an artist who's if there's somebody listening to this show and they're afraid that what they've created is too close to the inspiration, right? It is too close to the sun.
Yeah.
Then they should get a second or a third opinion.
Yes.
And, tread carefully, because, you don't want to find yourself in a courtroom with somebody who has outmoneyed you, right? Because you will lose.
Who should they check with? Like, because if you check with just your friend, like, yeah, it kind of sounds like, yeah, but
yeah. Well, I mean, that's the first place I would start
vet
with, right?
Usually, don't you think though, if you're like, oh wow, like I really thought, if you're like, oh, this sounds like so much.
Yeah, I know. I've written stuff, and I'm like, that's way too close to something, right? In deep inside.
And then your friends, and then I think that using a qualified producer, somebody who's really legit, has some time and experience underneath them to say, dude, like you can't do that. You just wrote Jump. You can't.
Yeah.
Right. You can't do that.
Oh, if only I'd written Jump.
Aren't those the lyrics to that other song?
If only I'd written Jump. Now, okay, so there's two paths that I see. If, say, somebody's in that situation, they go to a friend, they go to a qualified producer, something like that, and they get back, look, man, this is way too close to this song. I see there's two options that somebody could, three really, but two to move forward. One, they could abandon altogether, right? Just throw it in the trash and move on with their life. Let's say that's not really an option. So you have two choices. One, you could say, okay, well, let's work, enlist the help of that producer to change that song so it's not quite so much like the original, right? Pay homage instead of stealing. Right. Two, you could lean into the skid and use Jump as a sample and pay for the mechanical rights and go that route, pay for the use of that sample, and then, produce the shit out of Jump and make it your own, right? So I think those are like the two choices that someone could really pursue at that point.
Yeah, and remember, it is my understanding that copyright comes from, like, you can't copyright chords. We all know that. Okay, if you don't, you cannot copyright chords. You cannot copyright the title. Like, a title is not, you might be able to trademark it, which is different than copywriting, that you own the trademark to it. I think that's getting into a lot of stuff. Copyrights are melody and lyric. Okay. So the melody, the lyrics and the melody together. So the change up for, that is, if you've written something that's leaning too heavy into a song, change the melody a little bit. Like, work the melody around. Because the chord, or even, take one chord and flip it and change the melody. There's ways to not lose your creative, your little baby that you're trying to make, without just like, throwing it out with the bathwater.
I'm guessing that's why Ed Sheeran won the lawsuit, because it was like the chord progression was so similar, like the feel and everything was similar. However, the melodies were completely different. And like Marvin Gaye's song didn't have a chorus. That was the chorus, right?
Right.
Whereas Ed Sheeran had a completely different chorus.
Yes. Right. That's exactly why he won. So there, I hope that answered. That was a long way around a question.
No, but that's really good information, and I'm glad we took the time to talk that out, because I certainly didn't follow it that closely. Right. I remember that it had happened, but this is really good. And I think it's all really good. And exactly. Get creative, right? You've gotten a little too close to that artist, but just switch something, and now it's your own.
Yep.
I mean, I've done it myself. Everybody's done it. And you're like, oh my God, I wrote a hit song. No, somebody before you wrote a hit song and you just regurgitated it.
I was going to say, I've never written a hit song.
I thought I was on to one, and then Mr. Turner stopped us. He goes, "You can't write that." I go, "Oh, you're right." I go, "Really?"
He's such a spoil sport.
I'm like, "Oh, Lee, really?" We started laughing. I go, "I can't believe I called people on this song."
Okay, so now let's jump into one more thing before we wrap this up, because we are getting a little long. I don't want to keep us all too long, I should say. When you are navigating this world of releasing music, you've gone through BMI ASCAP, you have released your song on Spotify and all the streaming platforms. You've used something like DistroKid. Maybe DistroKid should reach out to us as a sponsor for this podcast. I'm not sure. But
they're nice guys and girls.
Are they?
I'm sure. I would love to have a conversation with them. Hint, hint, hint. What is something, if people have, making money off of streaming is, as we know, for the little guys, almost nearly futile, right? You're gonna make fractions of a cent on streams, right? So you're not looking at making a ton of money.
Split between your songwriters and your publishers.
Yes, exactly. I'm gonna go spend my 64th of a penny on a 64th of a slice of gum.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy to think that that's how much money people make from streaming.
It's fruit stripe gum.
Fruit stripe gum. Oh man, that brings back.
Do they have fruit stripe gum in England?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
What's your gum that lasts 30 seconds and then it turns into a rock? What's the gum for you guys? Anything, like the first 10 seconds you're like, oh, that's flavorful, and then it's just like
anything own brand that's not, if it's not Wrigley's, just steer clear.
Okay.
They can,
like Bazooka Joe, like the baseball card, cricket cards.
They're not allowed to eat all of that awful stuff.
Our government will have taken it away and banned it. It's fine.
Right. That's right. Out.
Okay, I digress. All right, so if somebody wants to make more money from their music, they can look into licensing for TV and film and go that route, right? And so is that part of this whole same sync licensing, mechanical licensing, all that stuff, or is this a completely different conversation?
Well, it is. It's all a part of it. If you are a songwriter, it is all a part of it. I'm looking into getting into the sync and all of that kind of stuff world. It is different than a record deal. It is as difficult, I'm finding, as arduous as, trying to land a deal when I was young. But because there are people in the industry that's all they do. Is they're the people in charge of, putting music into certain movies or and then each movie usually has like a musical director person that is vetting music also. There are some entertainment lawyers that can do that for you. And then there's some things like Crucial Music, and I can't think of a bunch of the names of them, but that you can do yourself, and you get put into like a big library of places that people go when they're looking for even small indie films or something like that. And they'll go through, you're not represented by anybody but that platform that you're using. But I've had friends that have landed some stuff through that, and you're vetted. They'll listen, they go, we don't have anything right now, so we're not going to, use any of those songs. Or they'll say, oh, we like these songs here, so we're going to put them into our catalog. The biggest thing you want to make sure is that they don't own the only rights to your music, like the only people that are allowed to distribute it. You want to use somebody that just uses, we can try and place it, and so can Joe Schmo down the road try to place it. Or if you happen to run into somebody in a bar one night and is looking for it, you can place it. So you don't want somebody to own the sole distribution of that song or songs. So just make sure when you're looking at those online ones, and there are some, my friends that have placed have been using this one called Crucial Music. And, that might be an option to, a nice launch pad for everybody, especially because entertainment lawyers and, sync agencies, they usually have their stable. It's hard to break into that stuff.
Yeah.
And like, if you're trying to pitch to artists, they usually have people that you can't even get to them. There's people in place that are vetting everything, and they only use certain people to vet their music to get them to you. Another thing that was brought to my attention is if you're looking for sync and for, it's such a double-edged sword, because you can blow up on TikTok or whatever, and 1 million people all of a sudden hear your music and somebody wants that. But then again, they can say, well, you've already exploded that out into the world. We don't want to use it now because in a month it's old. So do you sit on certain songs and only send them to sync licensing places? We have 2 songs right now that we're sitting on. We were told, please don't release these because we think they're highly syncable, and they will want to, we'll want to time that release with whatever it gets hit on. So, right. God, I wish there was a real roadmap for everybody. I really do. But it doesn't seem like there's any right way to do anything except get to BMI or ASCAP, find a distribution, company to put your stuff out on Spotify. One thing we didn't, and I think this is important, make sure that you get yourself, everybody belongs to Spotify or Apple Music, get yourself Spotify for artists, Apple Music for artists.
Yeah.
Like, you have to do those, because that differentiates your platform from being just like a guy that listens to music to somebody who's pushing product out.
And that's how you get that like verified check mark next to your
check mark. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
Same with YouTube. Get a channel.
Yeah.
Get yourself, and you can do all that online. BMI you can do online. Library of Congress, everything is done online. So,
and actually, DistroKid, I think, creates a YouTube channel called Your Name and then Topic or something like that.
Yeah, they do. But it's annoying. But I wanted to just
so that like messes up like.
It messes up my channel.
It messes up the algorithm. Yeah, right. You get strikes against your channel when it gets thrown on DistroKid's version of your channel. So I don't know. That's an interesting thought there for people. I think DistroKid and other services, they make it as easy as possible, and they've made it really easy. But I think that there's a couple places where like that YouTube channel that's not yours, but DistroKid creates it for you, can bite you, because when you want to go create yours, now you're getting strikes against your own music.
Yeah. And in the long run, here's the thing: you have to really blow up for any of that kind of stuff to really make a difference. You're splitting 0.00086% of a penny, through songwriting and publishing and all of that kind of stuff. We just had this conversation when I was in Nashville this week about how a friend of mine was like, we were on, and this is really going to date them, so like, I won't use names. They were on the Warped Tour, and they had a MySpace with hundreds of thousands of followers.
Warped Tour and MySpace was my bread and butter. I am very familiar with that. That is how
And then everything went away.
That is my jam. I miss Warped Tour.
Yeah, and then everything went away almost instantly.
Yeah.
And what's to say that this won't? With streaming. Like there will be there will be
Absolutely.
something else. Something's going to. It's the nature of the beast. You know, so I think. I don't know. I wish I knew the future. I'd buy stock in it.
Don't we all, right?
Yeah.
I mean, goodness.
And it changes so quick.
And we didn't even talk about releasing music physically, which is a whole other, you know, beast unto itself. And maybe definitely a topic for another.
You like
another
vinyl
show.
and CDs and.
Yeah, right.
The things that the kids don't buy anymore. Well, they buy the vinyl, but they don't want. Nobody wants a CD.
That's making a comeback, the vinyl.
I mean, every time I go to my local used bookstore, I always peruse the CD shelves because I always find at least one CD that I'm like, oh man, I'd love to have this, and it's like $3. That's great. I love physical media.
I do too.
I enjoy my streaming, but I would much rather own the piece.
I've convinced myself I sound better on analog. I'm just better on vinyl.
There we go.
That's the takeaway.
You know, that is the takeaway.
I love vinyl.
Everything sounds better on vinyl.
Absolutely.
Yep.
For people who are listening, if you haven't gone out there and associated yourself with BMI or ASCAP, do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't cost you anything at this point, and that could change, right, at any time. But
well, the publishing, to set up publishing is $150, but to just
but as a songwriter,
yeah,
right, exactly. So go and do that, right? And if you've already released music on these digital distribution platforms, fine, but set yourself up for success starting now with royalty payments and things like that. You never know when lightning is going to strike, and you want to be ready for that. Make sure that you are, staying far enough away from your inspirations. It's great to pay homage. It's not great to get too close to that and end up stealing something. And, you might regret it one day in a courtroom. Hopefully not, but it can happen. And Dave Grohl, was a fan of the Gap band, and that was the lick that he ripped off, as he so said, and was at a party and saw the drummer of the Gap band and said, I the whole reason Smells Like Teen Spirit exists is because of you. I took that riff, and the guy's like, yeah, I know, and it was all good. When Dave Grohl takes your riff and makes it into something 1,000 times bigger, I think you give him a high five at that point, right? Yeah. So, Leanne, thank you so much for spending time with us today, talking about how to, navigate this world. We were going to title this show "How to Stand Out in a Saturated Market," but that's not even really what we ended up kind of touching on. This is really like,
protecting yourself,
music releasing, protecting yourself 101, it seems like basic stuff, but I know that there's tons of people out there that have these questions, and this hopefully gives them some information that they can then go and research further and learn more. It gives them a jumping off point to set themselves up for success. Leanne, if somebody wanted to reach out to you and ask you more questions, or enlist your services as a guide or a vocal coach or something, is there a website that they can reach you at and get in touch with you?
Yeah, I have a website up. It's called leannebindermusic.com. And you can reach me on there. And then I have, all the socials, Leanne Binder Music on Insta, TikTok, it's blanketed. It's all branded across. So if you just hit Leanne Binder Music, you will find me.
Right on. Well, we'll post the link to that in the show description. And I guess, is there any sort of like last little thing you want to throw in there before we wrap it up?
I think just as someone who's been doing this her whole life, like music has been my business and my love and my passion. Everybody needs to understand that you have to advocate for yourself. Now we have everything. We have the computer at our fingertips. If you don't feel like something's right, look it up. Advocate, look into this stuff, because the business is can be a little grimy, and not everybody's your friend. Music will always be your friend. It's the people running stuff that might not always be your friend. So take the time and do the due diligence, because if you don't care about your music, I guarantee you nobody else will. That's it.
Wow.
Nice. That was well put.
that was,
I like that.
Boy, that was great. Thank you so much, Leanne.
Thank y'all for having me.
We appreciate your time today.
It's been amazing.
It's fun.
Neil and Ben, it's great to see you again. And we'll all talk soon.
Absolutely. Okay,
thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Sound Discussion. Your hosts are Ben Holmes, Neil Merchant, and me, Nate Kelms. Our theme song is composed and recorded by Jojo Timmerman. You can find us on the internet at sounddiscussionpodcast.com, or you can drop us a line at sounddiscussionpodcast@gmail.com. Additional show notes for this episode can be found on our website or in the description area of your podcast player. A big thank you to our guest for taking the time to chat with us today, and to you, the listener, for taking time out of your busy schedule to be part of our discussion. We look forward to having you join us again next month on another episode of Sound Discussion.
I've convinced myself I sound better on analog. I'm just better on vinyl.